start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Discuss a Paper right after reading it. So in a session, we first decide the paper we want to read, and then we read it in 2 hours, and now we come back to discuss it. So today we have 2 people, Yota and then me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yota Koshima from Japan. Or I'm doing research assistant in Japan. Yeah.
And I'm Qian Chen, and I'm currently a PhD student at Monash University, Australia. So the paper we read and are going to discuss today is named Causal Evidence for Processing the Bodily Self in Anterior Precuneus, published by Lu and colleagues this year in Neuron. So first, I'll give a summary on this paper, and then we'll discuss if we have any comments and questions. So for this paper concentrates on the sense of self. In the research of our sense of self, scientists often subdivide this sense of self into 2 categories. So the first category is our bodily self. And this is related to our sense that we own and are integrated with our own bodies. When we go around in the world, we experience and engage with our surroundings from our own body's viewpoints, so which are in a particular location, in particular shapes and size. And this bodily self was previously found to be related to a very distributed network of cortical and subcortical structures in the brain. And aside from the bodily self, we also have a narrative self, which is related to our own memories, and basically the story will tell about ourselves, such as who we are as a person and what our memories are. So basically what you say when you're asked to introduce yourself. Anyways, so this narrative self was found to be related to specifically posteromedial cortex. And here onwards, I will refer to it as PMC. So based on this previous research, it seems that there are 2 distinct sense of selves, and then their neural mechanisms seem also pretty separated from each other. However, these authors, in their previous studies or their previous just little pilot testing, they found that from a single patient, that's stimulating on the PMC, which is the area related to the narrative self specifically, actually causes strong sense of self dissociation, which is a kind of out-of-body an idea of being detached from the self and the reality of the outside world. So it's a pretty bodily detachment of the self. And this raises the question of, whether PMC is only related to narrative self, or it also has a role in the bodily self. So the aim of the current study is to investigate the role of PMC in the bodily self and the narrative self. And to that end, they designed 3 experiments. So the first experiment, they induce electrical stimulation on different sites on the PMC. And then they asked the participant who's receiving those stimulations to report their subjective bodily experience at the same time. So this is for investigating the relation between PMC and bodily self. And in the second experiment, they will run a cognitive task to test the autobiographical memory of the participants when they receive intracranial recordings. And basically, this would be about the involvement of PMC in the narrative self. And finally, because PMC must have achieved, any role in the sense of self via its connection with other areas of the brain, this third experiment will be a data analysis one, in which they will analyze the functional connectivity pattern of PMC during resting state. And now I'll give details on the methods and results of each experiment. So for the first experiment on PMC and bodily self, they recruited 9 participants, and they're all seizure or stroke patients with electrodes already implanted in their brain. And they use these electrodes to stimulate the different sites of PMC. And then they ask the participant to report whether they had any change in their bodily subjective experience. What they found was that specifically when they were stimulating the anterior precuneus region within the PMC, all participants reported change in bodily experience, such as floating and falling sensations. And importantly, 3 out of 9 participants reported the sense of self-dissociation, which is the out-of-body losing control of the body kind of experience. In contrast, though, the participants did not report any bodily experience change when they stimulate other sites within the PMC, so only anterior precuneus. So the next experiment is the relation between PMC and narrative self. So in experiment 1, the authors identified a single subregion anterior precuneus as the hot zone underlying the bodily self within PMC. So in experiment 2, they want to know whether this hot zone is also involved in the processing of narrative self. And they asked the participants, the same 9 participants, to do a cognitive task in which they're cued to retrieve different memories about themselves in an autobiographical way. And at the same time, they receive intracranial recordings in anterior precuneus. And unfortunately, they did not find any involvement of anterior precuneus in memory retrieval process. And finally, for the third experiment, they investigated the connectivity pattern of different PMC sites to the rest of the brain. And to save time, I'll only talk about the results related to anterior precuneus because it is the only site that is related to self, bodily self. And firstly, they examined the resting state connectivity and found that the anterior precuneus is connected to a range of cortical areas and subcortical structures, including mid-cingulate cortex, somatosensory area, V1, insula, etc. And they also verify these connections causally by stimulating the anterior precuneus, and then they receive signals at the connected target sites. And in summary, this study showed that within PMC, which is an area largely thought to be associated with the narrative self, there is a subregion, anterior precuneus, which is causally related to the bodily self. And stimulating this area will induce dissociation of oneself with their body. Okay, that's it. Now we move on to discussion. Yota, do you have any comments?
So while I was reading this paper, I start to remember one paper we read, I don't know when, but during this journal club, which was about navigation. And then, the paper, what they said, or what the paper said, was the B6 area is important for navigation in both, but when participant use the visual cue and auditory cue, I think, if I remember correctly. So that conclude that, the B6 is important for navigation. And that kind of, reminded me maybe related, because navigation requires a kind of sense of self, because without knowing you yourself, it's impossible to navigate you, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering whether, V6 is somehow related to this research, and I quickly checked whether they mentioned that, but I don't think they mentioned that. So maybe navigation is slightly different from this sense of self, or what do you think?
I think they actually talk about navigation
Okay, but
in the discussion.
I see.
I'll double check here what they were actually talking about. Function.
Yeah. I checked the location of V6 and anterior precuneus, and it's really close, but slight. Yeah, it's different. So I don't. Yeah, I'm just curious how or
I
whether they are related or connected.
I think V6 may be a higher level than what anterior precuneus do, in a sense that I remember V6 specified in locating your body
Mm,
spatially.
mm,
But APCU, so yeah, I'll stop referring it as the full name, anterior precuneus.
mm,
Here on now, I'll refer to it as APCU. So APCU is more about how yourself is integrated with the body. So in a sense, APCU, the experience induced by APCU is prerequisite in a sense for V6 almost.
okay.
I feel, but yeah, there's no connection. They did not reveal any connection between APCU and V6 though.
Mm,
Instead, APCU is directly connected to V1 and
mm,
also the other, very primary sensory areas.
mm, mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. I see. V6. I just don't remember the detail of the paper I mentioned. So maybe they mentioned about this area, APCU, no, APCU, yeah, APCU. But yeah, again, I'm just curious because, strongly, or it seems to be strongly related. So
Mm.
yeah, that's just, one comment to the question.
Mm.
Yeah, otherwise I didn't have time, but I just interested in the subjective report from the participant, because in the supplementary material they list the response, a verbal response from participant when they um, present the stimulus with different amplitude, different locations. Then basically the communication between the doctor and the patient. So in one condition, in one brain region, participant just says, no, I didn't feel anything. But in one case, they say, I feel something in my right leg or something. So I'm also interested in that, subjective experience or description of experiences. So yeah, I will check that later.
I
But
see.
yeah, otherwise, yeah, I don't have any, but I heard you have a lot of questions, so you can go.
I I I the reason why I asked whether you have questions is because I don't have many questions, but
Okay.
just out of body experience. I don't know if this applies to everybody, but when I wake up from a dream or something, I feel like, myself is thrown back to my like body lying in bed, kind of,
Mhm.
you were one moment you were still standing and doing stuff in your dream, and then the next moment you're like,
Mhm.
I feel like I wonder what APCU's activity is, during sleep and dreaming.
I see. Mm.
Because this is a very peculiar state of while you are not integrated with your physical body, your experience is like as if you are, integrated with the body, right? So, if APCU is related to the physical body only, or it is also related to whenever you have an experience of your experience.
I see, but I'm not sure about that because you are
Yeah,
saying that, while you are in sleep and you have a dream, basically you only have narrative self, no physical self, right? Or just a little.
you do have the physical self in the sense that you feel as if you're in a body, right? You don't dream as if we're floating around out of body, right? That's why dreams can feel real.
I see. Oh. What I was trying to say was that, I don't know why, but in my dream, by doing like this, I can fly.
Yeah. And
So that means that, I will have, really strong, bodily self in
yeah,
dream.
you have
And
even like superior control of your own body, right? Like I also feel like sometimes I have dreams of like, like a low gravity place. You jump and then you're like, "Woo," and then you jump really, really high and then you're floating before you go back to the ground. And I don't know, when I was little, the adults always told me, oh, that's because you're growing taller. You have to stream because you're growing taller. But now I think it's probably more just about what's happening in the brain.
I see. I see. I see.
And also it's interesting how the dream is always about seems to be related to this low gravity scenarios. But a sense of falling would make you wake up.
Low gravity.
Well, maybe low gravity isn't even the best word because sometimes I dream about being chased by horrible stuff and then I just try to run, but I couldn't run quickly. That's probably also a reduced um control of the body. So I don't know.
So I don't know, but if you are in that kind of situation in your dream, and then you wanna run away from a monster or something, by activating that area, APCU, we should be able to start running, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I see.
Or like because of the sleeping state, the brain is inhibited. So you try to activate APCU or like motor cortex, but it just won't. But if it is so bad that it actually gets activated, then I will just wake up, right? That's probably how this works.
I see. Yeah, that can be, interesting.
Yeah, they should study this as well. This is very interesting.
Yeah. But I think you need, to be patient because, first of all, you need very, high resolution measurements because this area is, I think, tiny. Maybe it's possible to do it with fMRI, but I'm not sure. That's, one thing. It's not easy to find participants, maybe. And the second thing is that, that participant needs to have that dream, right? The specific contents.
Yeah.
Until, that participant have that dream, we just keep, record the brain activity. I don't know how.
Yeah, it's like just let money run.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna very difficult.
And also it's unclear whether these are patients, seizure patients. It's unclear whether their dreams are still the same or like their sleep
Mm,
still operate the same way as
I see.
healthy individuals as well. But
Mm.
yeah, it's just a thought.
I see. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Um, okay. So this is related to depersonalization, derealization, right?
Yeah.
I think, which is related to Aniko's study.
In fact, you said the authors of this paper is presenting at ASSC, right?
No. I'm not saying that. I was just,
Oh,
guessing maybe they are presenting this
or
study.
maybe. Okay. Oh, too bad. If they are in ASSC, then I'm pretty sure Aniko will be in their sessions
Yeah.
because it's quite related to her work.
Mm-mm. I mean,
Yeah.
at least, in this paper, they mentioned consciousness, right?
Yeah. And
So,
also a sense of self is a big topic, and also body and self and consciousness is a big topic.
mm. Yeah. So, mm, yeah.
So, do you have any other things to discuss?
Not really.
Yeah, none for me too.
Oh, okay. Then, shall
Yeah, I
we?
just think this is a very interesting paper and it's very
Yeah.
cool to read. But I
Yeah.
don't actually,
Mm,
and I don't actually have any, it's unclear or anything like that. I think it's pretty clear. So,
mm, yeah. The good thing is that, they use high, resolution, spatial resolution, temporal resolution, recording. And also
mm,
they did, stimulation, electrical stimulations, which, makes their finding robust, which is great. And yeah, what they investigated is also interesting. So the body itself is interesting. So yeah, the overall paper was really interesting. Yeah.
mm. Okay. If we don't have anything else to discuss, then that's it for today's session. See you next week. Bye
Yeah. See
bye.
you. Bye bye.